That location is identified as S4, a place that officially does not exist. And there's a new film that's claiming to document what happened there, but it still has no release date. Welcome back. Or if this is your first time here, this channel investigates UAP, classified programs, anomalous intelligence, and the documented record. And we try and separate what's confirmed from what's asserted. And tonight, we're going to do just that with the S4 Bob Lazar documentary trailer. We're going to go frame by frame. Welcome to Hallucination Hippies. So let's quickly establish what we do know before we get into the trailer. So in 1989, a physicist named Robert Scott Lazar made a series of claims through Las Vegas journalist George Knapp. Now, Lazar stated that he had been hired by EG&G Special Projects, which is a real defense contractor with real legitimate DOE and DoD contracts that are on record. And he said that he was hired to work at a facility that he called S4. Now, S4, according to Lazar, was located about 15 miles south of Area 51. It was carved into a hillside, and it housed multiple disc-shaped craft. Now, he stated that his assignment was to work and understand propulsion, specifically a gravity wave amplifier that was powered by something that he called Element 115. Now, Element 115, a super heavy element that in 1989, it did not officially exist on the periodic table. Not until 2016 was it formally confirmed Element 115. It's called moscovium, and that fact alone is one of the main reasons why this case has never gone away. And it's also why when a new documentary is claiming new physical evidence and never seen footage appeared in 2025, this one, 500,000 people watched this trailer. So let's look at what that trailer actually contains. It runs about 2.5 minutes, and it's very carefully constructed. And the construction itself is worth examining. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Bob Lazar. In December of 1988, I was hired as a senior staff physicist by a U.S. defense contractor called EG&G Special Projects.
So it begins with a narration, right? Lazar speaks directly, and he leads with his reason being hired and his credential. So that initial framing choice is very deliberate because what it does is it anchors the viewer in this institutional language before any anomalous claim is made, right? You're not being asked to believe in flying saucers. You're simply being asked to consider a position that he held.
I was told that I would be working on an advanced propulsion system out in a remote area of the Nevada test site, known as Area 51. Wanting to protect myself, I decided to go public and reveal the secrets of S4. Well, there's actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
Then there's a detonation with an aerial shot of the Nevada test range. And these coordinates listed, they're very specific. They're not approximate. They are surveyable, and that is meaningful. Now, shortly in, Lazar describes the assignment. Not, I saw a UFO, nothing like that. The framing is technical, and that is important. Advanced propulsion systems.
He is not your typical straight-laced science guy. If you wanted to hire a guy who could think out of the box and help solve problems, Bob was probably the best person in the country at the time. He was perfect for it.
Now, I'd also like to mention this hand scanner shot that it shows. So Lazar, decades ago, explained a scanning system that was used to get in and out of his area at S4, or one of them. And basically you lay your hand on it and it would measure your bones.
You were telling people since 1989 that there was some sort of hand scanner.
They have a hand reader. I was told that it has to do something where it measures the bright light measures the bones.
That went quiet, and years later, a picture was presented to Lazar with one of these scanners, and you could just see his, face light up, and it was very emotional for him because it almost felt like vindication. So that was interesting that they showed that in the trailer.
People are catching on that what Bob said is true.
Physical evidence now exists which proves that there is life elsewhere, and at least one form of that life has been here. It was exactly like disarming a bomb. Every single day.
He was targeted.
And I saw the guy with the gun.
I was willing to fire back.
These briefings contained a wide spectrum of information, mostly relating to aliens and alien technology.
The people that have been keeping these secrets for a long time are not going to give this stuff up.
No one has ever been able to show exactly what I saw with my own eyes, until now.
All right, now a little over a minute and a half in, this is the money shot. The disc-shaped craft. It's partially visible inside what appears to be, this aircraft hangar. I would assume that, this is what Lazar referred to as the sport model. And what that image actually shows is the basic geometry of the structure. It shows the scale relative to the hangar bay. And, this is something that the full film hopefully addresses in detail. But the trailer does just give us this kind of image.
The information we're getting now is going to come to an end. The slightest wrong move could release a tremendous amount of energy.
So one line from this section deserves a specific pause. The slightest wrong move could release a tremendous amount of energy. So that's not just a dramatic use of language. That is engineering adjacent language. And people who work around high energy systems, particle accelerators, fusion assemblies, high voltage test environments, they describe risk in exactly those terms. Whether that language in Lazar's case is authentic or performed, hopefully that's, part of what we'll get in the documentary. But the phrasing like that would be typical in an environment in, say, Los Alamos, but very unusual for someone that's fabricating this generic general audience story to use. So just something to think about.
To start up the reactor, of course, we need some element 115.
But he had a piece of it, and I don't care whether people believe it or not.
Actually went up in the air like this.
Be here and suddenly be here.
We don't know where they came from.
This is my husband, Bob.
He didn't believe in flying saucers.
OSAP becomes ATIP. ATIP gets on the front page of the New York Times. It leads to congressional hearings. It leads to Dave Grush. All the stuff that's unfolding right now traces back to Bob Lazar.
So the trailer ends with George Knapp, and he says all this stuff that's unfolding right now traces back to Bob Lazar. So in 2026, right, in the context of AARO, proposed UAP Disclosure Act, congressional hearings that have happened, this statement is very poignant. It is a chronological argument in so many ways because Lazar went public in 1989 and he was dismissed for decades. And still, the official acknowledgement of UAP phenomena followed slowly, right, with a lot of resistance from institutions. And Knapp is basically saying that, Lazar laid the groundwork for what has happened so far. And that may be correct. And perhaps some of it will be reinforced with whatever new evidence is presented in the film. Now we're going to shift over from what's in the trailer to what's not. And I want to mention just a few things, right? So Lazar has consistently stated that he holds degrees from MIT and Caltech. Neither institution has been able to confirm his enrollment through standard verification channels. But employment records at Los Alamos, where Lazar also claims to have worked, were initially difficult to verify. However, a phone directory listing did eventually surface that placed his name there in 1982. The trailer obviously doesn't address any of this. And, I'm sure this was an editorial decision. A documentary presenting groundbreaking new evidence. you'd assume are very aware that this has been a major point of contention, Lazar's credentials, for decades now. So I'm not surprised that's not in the trailer, but I'm just saying, let's take note of that. That's all. Now, at one point, Project Galileo appears briefly on the screen. There's no explanation in the trailer. There's no context or anchor or anything. I would say that it was a very intentional placement of that. Hopefully, we do get a little more context in the documentary, what the purpose is for. Now, the part that the comment section on the actual trailer has been asking about for months and months, when is it coming out, right? As of this recording, March 2026, there's no confirmed release date of S4, the Bob Lazar Story, as of now. The trailer generated 500,000 views. The audience is obviously ready for this film. I'm ready for this film. I'm looking forward to seeing it if and when it comes out. But Project Gravatar, they haven't posted any real updates. And so people are wondering, right? Obviously, a lot goes on behind the scenes. We know that in Hollywood. So there very well could have been a strategic reason that they held off and waited to release it. Perhaps they were waiting until after the Age of Disclosure was released. Maybe there was a play there. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. But as of now, here's where we are. A trailer exists. It makes very specific claims. Some of those claims are verifiable. Some are incomplete. And one of them, Element 115, that argument is the most analytically significant thing that Lazar has ever talked about. Does that mechanism Lazar described in 1989 map onto what we now know about super heavy elements? Perhaps we'll be able to figure that out in another video. I'm looking forward to S4, the Bob Lazar Story. It's the age-old question, is Bob Lazar telling the truth? I think the answer is more complicated than any side of this debate wants to admit, but we'll see you there. Thanks for watching.